Hi guys, I'm Nevin Balaver, and this is my presentation on Beloved by Toni Morrison. So my rating scale is based off of these criteria that I'm about to list. For a 5, the novel has to have a complex plot and round characters that make the book interesting to all audiences. The main characters must be round and change throughout the story, and the book just has to be easy to follow. For a 4, the novel has to have a complex plot that would be interesting to most audiences. Most of the main characters must undergo development, and the book has to be mostly easy to follow. For a 3, the plot of the novel is below average and doesn't draw the reader in immediately, and some of the main characters undergo development and the book is just confusing. For a 2, the novel doesn't have a complex plot that draws the reader in, and most of the characters are flat, and the book is just not easy to follow. For a 1, nobody would want to read this novel due to its non existent plot and lack of character development. The book is also impossible to follow. Moving on to my objective summary. So, Beloved is a book following a slave woman named Setha who has a daughter named Denver. They also live with a baby Suggs, who's Setha's mother-in-law, who lived with them until she died. Setha's other two sons ran away after there was a supposed ghost who was haunting their house. So one day, Setha meets Paul D, a slave who she used to work with, and they hadn't seen each other for a very long time. They talk together, and Setha remembers some things that she just never remembered before, that she never remembered before. She hadn't thought about them. So the story now gets way more confusing because it becomes a jumble of flashbacks. So Setha remembers that she was born to an African mom who she doesn't know, and she is put into slavery, and her life goes downhill. She also marries Hal, a slave who she meets. So they also have two sons named Bugler and Howard. They also have a daughter who we don't know, and when the slave master died, all the slaves escaped. So two slaves, Paul D, who we mentioned previously, and Sixo were caught. Sixo was killed, and Paul D was just taken and tortured. At the time, Setha was pregnant. So Setha gave birth to the daughter who I mentioned earlier, Denver, and Setha was finally free because all the slaves were freed until she was notified that she was about to be caught. She attempts to kill her children, but only succeeds in killing one. This baby will now be known as Beloved. She faces the consequences for killing Beloved. People think it was not a good idea. In the present, keep in mind we're talking the present now, the book has a lot of flashbacks. In the present, Paul D chases away the ghost of what we think is Beloved. Paul D chased away the ghost, and Setha and Paul D were thinking about marriage until they found a woman laying on their stairs. This woman was discovered or is believed to be Beloved, and Setha and Denver love Beloved, but Paul D hates her. Beloved just doesn't get along with Setha. Not with Setha, sorry, with Paul D. They just do not get along. So, Paul D also leaves Setha after he learns that she killed Beloved, and later in the story, Mr. Bodwin came to Setha to get her a new job, and she believed that he was the school teacher who was going to take her back to slavery. So she was very nervous, having flashbacks, so she attempted to stab him. When she attempted to stab him, there were also just, a group of women trying to stare off the ghost, and when she tried to stab him, Beloved disappeared forever, never comes back. So then, so far, I'd say the novel, it ends there. Beloved disappears, and they return to what you can only assume is their normal life. Okay, so I decided to give this novel a 4 because it does have very round characters and an interesting plot, but it does have a very confusing element. The confusing element is the flashbacks. These flashbacks make the book so confusing. The reader does not know what they're reading unless they really take time unless they really study the book. So, onto the characters. The main character, Setha. Setha is very dynamic because we first believed, she's a very innocent, loving mother. And until we learn that she killed Beloved. So, Setha, the innocent woman who we all love, is a murderer. That is the biggest character change you could ever hear. Even if you did it out of love so she wouldn't grow up a slave, murder is murder. Denver, Setha's daughter. I would say Denver is dynamic because she starts off as a very shy child and slowly becomes more and more sociable as she got to know Beloved. So yeah, she became out of her shell. She was this shy kid, and now she's more sociable with Beloved. Obviously, we don't know what happens after Beloved left, but we can only assume that she's on the right track. To me, I would say Paul D. I wouldn't say Paul D is not that dynamic. To me, at least, I don't know about your opinion, but to me, he was just kind of some character that Setha knew. They were kind of in love, but like, I don't think he had really any development except for the fact that he kind of loved Setha again after Beloved disappeared. But I think in general he was a mainly flat character, but he wasn't in no means a main character, so it doesn't necessarily bother me. Baby Suggs, she was there. She didn't do anything. She wasn't dynamic. The last character, Beloved. Okay, here's the thing with Beloved. Personally, Beloved was well, not personally. Here, Beloved is a very, 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 very mysterious character. Correct? So we don't know a lot about Beloved. So I think it would be wrong for me to say that Beloved goes through a bunch of character changes because we don't really know who she or he or any they are in the first place. We don't know who Beloved is. So I said Beloved is not dynamic. That is very subject to change, believe me. But Beloved, just because to me at least Beloved isn't dynamic, she did not like that doesn't mean she's not important. Beloved is the most important character in this whole story. So, you know, that's just my opinion. It is very subject to change. So, yeah, as I'm gonna say, there are a lot of interpretations of who Beloved actually is. I mean, some people think that she's the ghost of Setha's child, and others think that it's her mother. It's very possible that she's one of the two, or maybe somebody completely different. Nobody knows. So, I personally believe that Beloved, sorry, is Setha's daughter. So, yeah, I personally gave the book a 4 out of 5 for all these reasons. In this presentation, Beloved is looked at as Setha's daughter. The book gets a 4 out of 5 from me. Thank you, and have a great day.